We're back. What is shaking, YouTube? I'm your host, Lawrence, over at Mighty Comics Collectibles, and we are back, yes, for the Hot 10 Comics of the Month breakdown. I stopped the weekly video because there were just the same books appearing week after week after week, so I said, let's combine this list and do a monthly spot. With that said, I'm going to show you 10 books that I ranked myself, but all of these books over the past month, it's only been 2 weeks since we stopped the videos, have been on the Hot 10 Comics of the Week. So with that said, I'm going to give you a couple of books that didn't make my top 10, so you guys get all the books that appeared on the list. But before we get started in the video, I remind you, if you're not a current sub of the channel, do yourself a favor, hit that sub button, smash the like button for yours truly, and with that said, let's get into this month's breakdown. Alright, so let's start off this month with the books that made the list, but they did not make my top 10. We're going to start off with Incredible Hulk number 340 and this classic cover by Todd McFarlane. Next up, Amazing Spider-Man number 300 and the first full appearance of Venom, and of course another iconic cover by the great Todd McFarlane. This book was on the list twice over the past 2 weeks. Then of course we have Amazing Spider-Man number 252, the first appearance of the black symbiote costume in the Amazing Spider-Man run. This is also on the list the past 2 weeks. Next up, we have Iron Man number 1, the first appearance and origin of Iron Man in his own solo title. This book was only on the list this week. And lastly, Fantastic Four number 50, this iconic cover by the great Jack Kirby, and the second and third appearances of Galactus and the Silver Surfer, respectively. Now to the hottest 10 comics of the month. Starting us off this week at number 10 is Amazing Spider-Man number 50, the book I call the trifecta. The first appearance of the Kingpin, this classic storyline Spider-Man No More, and this iconic cover by the late great John Romita Sr. This week we had a couple of monster sales, a CGC 8.5 selling for $3,500, up 10% over the average. Then we had a CGC 7.5 sale selling for $1,920, but up 11% over the average. You guys know I absolutely love this book. Anytime I see it, I want to buy it. So yes, 100%, this is a thumbs up for me. But I will say this, if you're not a Spidey fan, and you're not a classic cover fan, and you're not a John Romita fan, why are you buying it? But for me, it's always a buy. Back on the list and on the inaugural Hot 10 Comics of the Month list, Fantastic Four number 49 and the first full appearance of Galactus. This is also the second appearance of the Silver Surfer. And this month we had a CGC 7.5 selling for $1,698, up 4% over the average. Then we had a CGC 6.0 selling for $1,000, up 27% over the average. Next up, a CGC 4.5 selling for $570, up 11% over the average. And then guess what? Another CGC 4.5 selling for only $550, up 8% over the average. In hindsight, guys, this book was on the list each of the past 2 weeks, so yes, it is at my 9 spot. With that said, I am going to say it's now the right time to be buying this book. With the cameo of Galactus we got in that trailer, I'm going to say no. But I will say I love this book. If you're a long-term holder, this is always a buy for me if you can get it under market value. Coming in at number 8 on this month's Hot 10 is Avengers number 4, the first Silver Age appearance of Captain America, Steve Rogers. This is where Captain America joins the Avengers as well. And last week we had a CGC 7.0 selling for $3,000, up 5% over the average. Then we had a CGC 4.5 sale selling for only $1,250, up 1% over the average. I always say this talking about this book, I'm not a huge Captain America fan. I'm not really a book that I want to own in my collection, but with that said, a low grade to mid grade copy of this book can still be had for pretty cheap in my opinion, very undervalued. So with that said, I would be buying it if I wanted to own this book. I still think it's a good deal. Speaking of Captain America, at number 7 this month is Captain America number 117, the first appearance and origin of the Falcon, Sam Wilson. And just this past month, we had a CGC 9.4, a monster grade for this book, selling for $2,550, up 15% over that average. And then we had a CGC 6.5 selling for only $288, only up 1% over the average. Do I want to spend $2,000 on this book? Hell no. But for under $300 to get a mid to fine grade copy of this book, to me, I am buying it all day, all the time at this price. So yes, if you can get a good deal on it, I am buying this book. More heat at the 6th spot. It is Hero for Hire #1. The first appearance and origin of Luke Cage, the first black superhero to headline a title in mainstream comics. And last week we had a CGC 8.5, selling for only $685, up 13% over the average. Then we had a CGC 6.0 sale for, get this, only $330, up a crazy 31% over the average. In my opinion, again, same thing for the last book we just talked about, $300 for a fine copy of this book. I'm always a buyer, a massive first appearance, but when we get to higher grades, it gets a little bit pricey for me. But for the character and what it's going for right now, I'd be a buyer. So I take 2 weeks off, and all of a sudden we have massive keys on this list. At number 5 this month is Fantastic Four Annual #6. It has been on the list each of the past 2 weeks. This, of course, is the first appearance of Annihilus, ruler of the Negative Zone. But more importantly, this is the first appearance of Franklin Richards, the most powerful mutant in the Marvel Universe. We all know why this book is on this list. And last week we had a CGC 9.0, selling for $975, up 2% over the average. Then 2 weeks ago, we had a CGC 8.5 sale for only $700, up a crazy 22% over the average. Then again this week, a CGC 7.0, selling for $299, up 12% over the average. And lastly, a CGC 5.0, selling for only $200, but get this, up a crazy 49% over the average. I think for $200 for this book, I'd be all over it, no matter what the grade, in my opinion. As we get into the higher grades, it gets a little bit more pricey, just like other books on this list. Do I want to own this book? Not really, but I do understand the spec that is going on with this character right now, because we all assume that Franklin Richards is going to be in Fantastic Four First Steps. With that said, if you can get a deal, I'm a buyer. If not, I'd be staying away. It has taken too long for this book to get back on this list. At number 4 this month is House of Secrets #92, the first appearance of the original Swamp Thing, Alex Olsen. And last month we had a CGC 8.5, selling for $3,360, up 6% over that average. Then we had a CGC 6.0 sale for only $1,330, up 1% over the average. You guys know I talk about it all the time. This book has been incredibly hot ever since James Gunn has taken over the DCU. With that said, I'll say it right here. Is now the time to be buying this book? When all the news that has come out, I'm going to say no, but it is still pretty hot in my opinion. If you're a long-term holder, I'm giving it my blessing. One of the best Bronze Age keys you could buy. At the 3 spot is a book that we have not had on this list in quite some time. It is Fantastic Four #13, the first appearance of the Watcher. This is also the first appearance of the Red Ghost, a Russian scientist active during the Cold War. There are rumors out there that John Malkovich may be playing the Red Ghost in the new Fantastic Four movie. And last week we had a CGC 7.0, selling for a whopping $1,080, up 6% over the average. Then we had a CGC 3.5 sale, selling for only $408, up 4% over the average. For me, I always say with these early Fantastic Four books, unless they're major keys, I really don't want to pick them up. I think they're too expensive. Outside of FF number 5 and FF number 1, I'd rather put my money to other keys I want in my collection. With that said, if you're a big Watcher fan, you enjoy the character, a huge character in Marvel lore, I just think for what the book is, it's a little bit too pricey, so I'm staying away. At number 2 this month on the Hot 10 Comics of the Month breakdown is Amazing Spider-Man number 129, the first appearance of the Punisher, Frank Castle. This is also the first appearance of the Jackal. And last week we had a CGC 9.4, selling for a whopping $3,960, up 9% over the average. Then we had a CGC 9.2 sale, selling for $3,120, up 10% over the average. Next up, a CGC 8.0 for $1,900, up 5% over the average. And lastly, a CGC 6.0, a lowly 6.0, selling for $1,150, up 6% over the average. So this book was on the list each of the past 2 weeks, a massive Bronze Age key and a classic cover in my opinion. You know, as a Spidey guy, as a Punisher guy, I want to own this book. I used to own 6 copies at once. I am now down to 1. But yes, if you're a long-term holder, I definitely want to buy this book. And finally, at the top spot, number 1 this week, a massive Silver Age key. It is Avengers number 1, the first team appearance and origin of the original Avengers team, Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, Ant-Man, and the Wasp. And last week we had 2 huge sales. A CGC 5.0 selling for $4,799, up 3% over the average. Then we had a CGC 2.5, right up my alley, selling for $2,240, up 9% over the average. You guys know I love this book, an undervalued book. I always say it, and to me a 2.5 is right in my wheelhouse. Just make sure the colors are good, nice and bright, not too much damage, and I'd be all over this book. A must buy in my opinion if you're a long-term holder. So that's it for this month's breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So there were only 2 weeks that we had books, considering I stopped the list 2 weeks ago. So look for this video the last Thursday of every month, because that's where I plan on doing it. Of course, if you're a member of the channel, you're going to get it a little bit earlier. Okay, if you're interested in becoming a member, go to the description. There's a members tab. Pick out what you want. With that said, it is now time for my best buy of the month. And to me, this is a hard choice. A lot of great books on this list, but me being a Spidey guy, the trifecta's on this list. I'm going with Amazing Spider-Man number 50. I absolutely love this book. It's one of the books that if I find it anywhere for a deal, I'm always picking it up. Hope you guys enjoyed the list. This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.